Hey everybody, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by WynnBET. Jeff Erickson, Chris Liss here. It was kind of a weird stratified week 6. There were a ton of blowouts, but 3 overtime games, and the London game was actually close and competitive. So we'll go through all those. We'll talk about what everything's affecting us. What's going on, Chris? How you doing?
Oh, good, man. I thought the football was kind of crap this weekend.
Yeah.
I survived in Survivor, survived in real life, check, survived in Survivor, check. So those are the most important things.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the Giants wasn't really very enjoyable, and just a lot of, weird games that weren't great. A couple bad beats, but yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Yeah, it was weird. Early window, there was one overtime game, the Carolina and Minnesota. Close doesn't necessarily equal good, though. It was kind of a sloppy game. Carolina's receivers were terrible. Sam Darnold was terrible, but both DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson were just dropping like it was going out of style. It was really a sloppy game.
Yeah, I didn't watch that much of it. I saw Darnold's stats.
Yeah,
got into some debates on Twitter because I always like to make the joke that the Gettle Chad made the right call drafting Barkley, and people still like trying to act like, oh, that was equal. No, if you draft Sam Darnold, the number 3 pick, you just gave away 3 years of your franchise. And we'll see if Carolina, how many years they gave away with that defense and those players. But you're saying that it wasn't just Darnold, it was the whole offense.
Yeah, the whole offense. I mean, Darnold was bad. Don't get me wrong. He's a big part of that. But at the same time, it's also the defense. I mean, the receivers were terrible. There are a lot of different things there going on, but it was kind of a sloppy game. I mean, Carolina's offense did nothing for 3 quarters. Then down 11, they string together 2 drives to tie that game up. It was kind of a miracle that they got to go to overtime in the first place there. But hey, sometimes it works out that way. But I don't know. It was just kind of one of those games like this game really wasn't close. I was on the wrong side of this. I was way on the wrong side of Chargers, Baltimore.
So was I. It's funny. There are a couple of games I wrote about this in the observations. Like the Raiders, Broncos were so obvious. You should take the Raiders in retrospect. Like that the narrative. It's just like, oh, the Raiders were a joke. No, they didn't. It's not like Gruden quit on them. He got canned for something unrelated to the team performance. And but there's this kind of narrative street. And like, it was just like, okay, well, that's why should have taken the Raiders. It was obviously the right call. And I felt the same way about the Chargers, even though I was on the Chargers and I was on the wrong side. Like, it was so obvious the Chargers shouldn't be getting the full 3. It was suspect. It's like one of those things where you're like, well, obviously I'm taking the Chargers getting the 3. The Ravens defense is terrible. But it was just one of those, made no sense and by the other side of it type of things. I mean, the Ravens defense was really bad through 5 weeks. And all of a sudden they just really shut down one of the better offenses in the league.
Yeah, it was wild how that happened there, and I tend to think that it's just we go out and talk about this all the time. When we see a line like that, what are we missing? And I was like that way with Carolina too. And you were on how Darnold's so bad. Did you take Minnesota in this one?
I took Carolina because I made the line. I thought they'd be favored by more, but it was an overtime game.
There's a couple of non-covers in overtime games.
New England was a joke. I mean, that was really bad. I knew when they got the 2-point conversion it was going to overtime and I was going to be in trouble. And then, so that was terrible. And then, but none of them went in my favor. Like Miami didn't go in my favor. New England didn't go in my favor. Carolina didn't go in my favor. It's like I was 0-3 in overtime.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
And Pittsburgh, Seattle, 0-4 in overtime.
Yeah, because we needed more than the 3, right? If you are on the Pittsburgh side of things.
Yeah, you needed a touchdown. And like, okay, like, especially when you lose the coin flip, like you're like, okay, well, I'm never going to cover as more than 3-point favorite if they get the ball second. But Dallas did. And I had New England. I was like, okay, I'm good. New England got the ball. Like all they needs a field goal. Well, of course they scored a touchdown.
Of course they did. Boy, I mean, that Pittsburgh Seattle game was just a punt fest. It was terrible. I mean, I was driving home and I was toggling between that and the baseball game. And I was like, okay, this commercial, go over to football. Oh, getting ready to punt. Okay, back here. I mean, and I got to do a lot of rewatching today just to make up for what I did. But, it's funny, the afternoon window, those games were actually pretty compelling. I didn't listen to as much of Denver and the Raiders as I did to the other 2 games. Arizona, that was a kind of a beat me down against Cleveland, but it was yet interesting listening to the Cleveland broadcasters talking about this. Like, man, we just can't afford another 3 and out here. Arizona's just moving on us too early. And they were complaining about the refs a lot. But early on, Arizona had a couple drives extended by penalties and late flags and things like that.
But the Browns got a Hail Mary to score one of their touchdowns.
Right.
And then also, I guess I didn't realize this. I knew Wills was out, but I think they lost Conklin or their other tackle also. Yeah. And, of course, they were out without Chubb. So they were really down a bunch of guys.
Hunt eventually. And then.
Right. Yeah. They just – but also, Baker's playing. I don't know with that how much that shoulder is. He had the worst fumble I've ever seen. He scrambled and was like, just get rid of it. And he just kind of was negligent, in traffic, just dropped it. And then stayed down pretending like he was hurt. And I was like, man, a real man after a fumble that bad doesn't fake an injury. He fakes his own death because it's so disreputable to have that fumble. But apparently he did, re-dislocate his shoulder, his left shoulder. But Baker Mayfield's just not good right now. And it's just the Browns are just a weird team. I've been betting against them all year and getting it wrong. And then finally I took them and I got it wrong again.
OBJ was in and out of that game. That was another thing they were dealing with there too. They were all out of sorts in this one here, and they played Thursday night against Denver, another team that's out of sorts all of a sudden.
Yeah, Denver. They played the Giants, Jets, and Jaguars. They were 3-0, and it was like, oh, Denver, Teddy Bridgewater, he's pretty good. And we know Teddy Bridgewater is just a guy. He's like a good backup. He's not the guy you want as your starter. He's better than Drew Lock, so that was like an upgrade, but. Yeah, I think they got kind of exposed. And the Raiders are a better team. The Raiders have a better offense. Their defense isn't that bad, so they're the better team.
But the Raiders' offense the last 2 weeks had been exposed. They gotten shut down by the Bears and the Chargers. And we're like, okay, that Derek Carr thing, that was fun. That was cute. And Denver's a legit defense, I thought. And I still think Denver has a pretty decent defense, but they were getting crushed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Raiders, like Gruden, even though I think Gruden did some good things, I think they needed an update with the offense. Yeah. I feel like they weren't really getting, I didn't get Kenyon Drake involved. It was just it kind of got a little predictable. And I think they did some things this week that was that was a little more creative. So I thought the offense was actually better. And sometimes you need a new set of eyes on things.
Yeah, you do. Let's talk about our respective teams. Both were blowouts. I was surprised at the extent of the blowout in Rams-Giants. I thought, okay, you've got Jones is playing. That'll keep it competitive at least. But the surprising part was how easily the Rams moved the ball.
Yeah, in the beginning, Leonard Williams got to Stafford a couple times. Their defense was okay, but it was just the Giants. It was just I knew it. I predicted 33-9, although I thought Glennon was going to be the QB. But it was Danny Dimes playing like Glennon or playing like Danny Dimes 2020, where he's turning it over a lot. And then when the Giants defense is okay, but it's not great. And when you leave them on the field a lot, they start to fall apart. And so Cooper Kupp was open all day, and just the turnovers and short fields. I stopped watching. I had Leonard Williams. I picked him up in stake, which was good because I had Nick Bosa on bye, and Leonard Williams delivered, and I had Kupp and Stafford going, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world. And I did not. We were going to use I thought about using the Rams and Survivor, and I didn't. But yeah, it was a hard game to watch.
It was. Kadarius Toney got hurt on the first drive after getting 3 catches early on.
That was super annoying. I had him in 3 or 4 leagues active, so that was tough.
And honestly, it's kind of a big injury with all the injuries. No Galladay yesterday.
No Slayton. Yeah, no Slayton. So it was all
Shepard
they only had Shepard.
Less than 100%.
Yeah, that's all they had was Shepard too. So that was bad, and I want to see how hurt he is. But Toney is like Odell Beckham. He came in, was hurt for a couple of days, didn't have a big role, and then just got 189 yards in less than a full game and 3 for 36 right out of the gate, and he's hurt again. But he seems like he's, he may be one of the best receivers in the last couple of years. If he's got to stay healthy, obviously.
Yeah, he looked awesome against the Saints and the Cowboys, and that was their first. He got, they were driving on that first drive. That's where they got their points, and then they got on their last drive.
But you can't lose by 30 and be like, but for this rookie receiver, would have been a good game. They got their ass kicked. It's just it's a weird team because like I feel like the parts are not that bad. Like they get Andrew Thomas and they've got Barkley and they got the full receiving core with Galladay and Tony, and the defense isn't that bad. It's just like I feel like they're okay, but
right.
The problem is Jones is just okay, and the defense is just okay. And if they're missing something, they just easily fall apart. So they're not that far from being good. They're still not good,
Right. That's right. There's one thing we appreciate here at RotoWire. It's making good decisions, and even more so, making the right decision. Listen up, folks. I have an incredible offer for you with RotoWire's newest partner, WynnBET, the premier digital casino and sportsbook app. WynnBET is the exclusive sponsor for for RotoWire's fantasy podcast. WynnBET brings you all the latest action with a user-friendly interface, moneyline bets, boosted parlays, over-unders, round robins, live betting, and so much more at your fingertips. Want a break from sports betting? Head into WynnBET's digital casino and take a spin on roulette, double down in blackjack, slam the slots, or try your hand at baccarat. WynnBET is currently available in 6 states: Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia, while rapidly expanding. At WynnBET, the possibilities are limitless. WynnBET is currently offering all RotoWire listeners a risk-free bet up to $500 on your first wager. Download WynnBET now. That's WYNNBET. WynnBET, the exclusive partner for RotoWire's fantasy podcast. Jeff Erickson, Chris Liss here. We are breaking down week 6. Bengals Lions was not much of a game. Lions were kind of a joke offensively in this one here. In fact, there's like 27-0, and in the fourth quarter, and the Lions settled for a field goal. And the Lions announcer was like, "Oh, we just need to get something positive, get some points on the board." It's like it was such a surrender field goal. It was so sad.
It was a nutless field goal. Just try to score a touchdown. Don't do that. Those moral victories are moral losses because you're admitting you need a moral victory, right? Only a totally broken team needs a moral victory. So if you try to get a moral victory, it ironically becomes the opposite. It's a moral defeat. So go and score a touchdown. And if you get the touchdown, taking the risk that you get shut out, then you can feel good about that. But the Bengals were the better team. I should have made that my best bet. I made the Titans my best bet. We'll see tonight. But that was just like I had it exactly 3.5, and then you just looked at it a little more and you're like, no, the Bengals are definitely the right bet because the Lions should have kept it close against better teams than the Bengals. And yet it was just the right bet. And Dalton, we knew it was the right bet because he had the Lions and immediately knew it was the wrong bet. And sometimes that's better than feeling good about it, like feeling something and then after you commit to it, being like, oh, that's just wrong. That sometimes is like the real tip off of what's right.
Right. Well, if you have that, then you can act on that too. Then just turn around and leverage that a little bit. But then you can be wrong on both sides of it. But I guess, anyways, Bengals. I mean, they got to sub out Joe Burrow just because they were ahead so much, and then Brandon Allen led them on scores. I mean, it was just one of those sort of games. It was kind of crazy how easy it was for them. But we'll take it.
As I said, the Lions were a strong 0-5, and now they're a little above average 0-6.
Yeah. You know who's not winless anymore is Jacksonville with that weird field goal. Matthew Wright hitting that weird one to tie the game where it looked like it was just going to drift outside and then curved it at the last second. This is a team that had no field goals going into the season, and they win by kicking these long ones. Kind of crazy.
No, that was one of the craziest things I've seen in all of sports. He just straight shanked it. As soon as it came off his foot, you're like, oh, okay, that's a miss. And then somehow it went back in. You never see that. I mean, it's just not seen. It's just not done. And it was a miracle from 54, no less. I mean, that was just a miracle for them. I had the Dolphins minus 3.5, so I was hoping it went in to go to overtime. Of course, didn't do many favors in overtime. The Dolphins are just bad. I do think Tua is better than Brissett. He can throw a little bit further down the field. He's not got a great arm, but he's got a little bit. And then Gesicki looked really good. So that was something. James Robinson just doesn't go down on contact. He just is always, maybe it's the Dolphins' weak tacklers, but I kept being like, dude, you've got him, just take him down. But he'd run into them and then he'd just back up and twist and be 5-6 yards down the field. I'm like, now they've got 2nd and 4. It should have been 2nd and 9, but you cannot always give up an extra 4 yards every time you've got the guy in your clutches. You gotta take him out, and they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's right. And it was kind of a weird game because, it's first of all, it's those two teams automatically make it weird. London game, just teams. But you know what? Miami, I they got to do. I mean, I didn't have a problem, by the way, with Miami going for it on that fourth one. Maybe the play call itself was pretty bad, but I mean, you've lost 4 in a row now 5, but you don't play for a tie. You don't play the conservative thing against Jacksonville. It didn't work out, but going for it was the right call.
Yeah. Tying against Jacksonville, there's no pride in that. That you have to beat Jacksonville if you can. They hadn't won a game in like 20 games or something.
Yeah, that's right. So you take your chances on that. But Miami, they asked not to have the bye after the London game. Now what do you do? I mean, they've lost 5 in a row. Their season's just done.
Tear it to pieces. Anybody sell everything. They already did that before. They traded Tunzel for some picks, and they were selling everything that wasn't tied down. Minka Fitzpatrick they got rid of, and he's a good player. They need to keep getting rid of. They just need to I don't know what else they have, but it's like they're it's already 2022 for them. I mean, same with the Giants. They're not like I'm one to talk, but.
Yeah, Waddle looked good at least. I mean, but
he didn't look great. He didn't. I mean, the depth of target is so low that it's like only Gesicki really made plays. Like Waddle was just catching these 3-yard outs.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's all the problem is they don't have the downfield game. You're right about that.
Well, Tua has more of a chance than Brissett, but it's still not great. Yeah. And they don't run it well. They don't stop the run. They were missing their 2 top corners. It's just it's a doormat. Some teams are doormats. Like the Dolphins are a doormat. Like the football team is a doormat. Like that you didn't think would be doormats.
Yeah, that's right. And their defense was supposed to be strong. We're like, oh yeah, let's go get the Washington defense. That pass rush looked great. Well, they've got 2 really good players, but the secondary has been a huge disappointment. William Jackson was supposed to be a big addition, and he hasn't been. I think that's a big part of it there too. I was seeing a tweet come across about how the Packers schedule is about to get really tough, and they listed the football team as the first team in that tough schedule. And yes, it was a close game for a while. They were actually ahead of the Chiefs, but they're not that good. Washington is really a bad team.
Yeah, they're bad, and their defense is bad. Their offense is bad. Heineke, I thought, might give them a spark because he's younger. He's not that young, but younger than Fitzpatrick, and he just hasn't. And Antonio Gibson's been banged up a little bit, and the defense is really what's disappointing. We thought they would be a good defense, and maybe they'd run the ball, and if they had some creativity and mobility at quarterback, it could help. But when you're a bad defense, and now the offense has to actually put you on its back, and it's that offense, you got real problems, and they're bad. The Giants should have beat them. They just screwed up that field goal. They jumped off sides on a field goal. They would have won.
Right.
And besides, and Atlanta could have beat them. And those are their only 2 wins. They could easily be 0-6 right now.
I agree. Absolutely. And I think that's an interesting takeaway. That said, the Chiefs should have won by more. I mean, they had 2 deep red zone turnovers. One, Tyreek Hill ball slipped right through his hands. The other, Mahomes did when he was trying to evade a sack and just tried to pull a Mahomes thing and instead couldn't get it off and just tossed it up in the air basically. And so that was one of those where you're like, oh, come on, let's. It wasn't great. So yeah, but they were driving. They should have had a lot more points early on there. I think that the football team's just not that great, and they're Gibson was banged up. It was more McKissick than Gibson. That shin splint or the shin microfracture is going to be an issue every single week. You see him limping or hobbling around like that. Wouldn't be surprised at some point they just shut him down. Yeah,
it's funny how much damage. McCaffrey's now at an extra 3 weeks. Gibson's banged up and gimpy. Cook came back, had a big workload, but he missed 2 weeks. Barkley's out for who knows how long. A lot of these first-round running backs have taken a beating early on. CEH, second-round running back, out on IR. Montgomery, third-round running back. It's already, we're only in week 6, and half of the top, 15 running backs have suffered. But Gibson doesn't look right, and the team doesn't look right. And with the running back, you hope that you have a guy, with the game flow that works, especially with McKissick playing third downs, right? So now he needs game flow, and they're not getting the right game flow. And Gibson looks like it's not going to be, it looks like it's not going to be a good pick. It's hard to see that one turning around.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on that one there. So we'll see how much that changes when they kind of go about things here, and whether they can go out and get another wide receiver to kind of complement McLaurin. Samuel keeps getting hurt. I saw people are like trying to get on DeAndre Carter last week. That was a big bust. I don't know. It's just they're just a mess right now.
Yeah,
crappy team. Enough said about them. Let's move on to another one here. You led off with your cover photo on your observations article is Jonathan Taylor. That was a weird game at halftime. I was tilting. I think he had one carry at halftime.
2 carries at halftime. And also Wentz was super annoying because he's played a little better, but he had a couple bombs. He had one touchdown to Paris Campbell. Then he had another bomb to T.Y. Hilton. And so he was like, oh, look at this. I can do this. And there are a couple plays. It seemed like Taylor was just wide open in the flat for a check down. And he held it. He got sacked. I'm like, dude, check that thing down. You're not Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
You need to use the check down. You're not that good. Like, check it down. And he wouldn't do it. And then the second half, Taylor busts that 80-something yard run, then gets 3 goal line carries, scores on the third, scores another late touchdown. And he only got like 14 or 15 carries, and 1 catch. But I mean, it just seems like the Colts have to know, like, this is the guy. This is the guy we rode last year. And this is the guy that, that needs to get the ball a lot if we want to, catch the Titans and make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's right. And they've got the schedule lined up. They're in the meat of their easy part of their schedule.
Yeah.
They took care of business yesterday. T.Y. Hilton came back, but then he got hurt a little bit. So we'll check that out to see what happens with him. That it changes things. It hurt Pittman. It definitely hurt Zach Pascal. But Hilton did injure his quad, so something to watch there. It came in the second half there. And then Paris Campbell also got hurt with a foot injury. So they face San Francisco this upcoming week. That'll be one to watch for sure.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if they could run on them. Although San Francisco's defense is not as good this year as it was a couple of years ago. Last year they were hurt a lot, but I just got to give them the ball. And their offensive line, and Quentin Nelson's still out. But it doesn't. They just need to give him a little space, a little room, because as you saw with that 80-yard run, once he gets going, he's like a 4.39. And those guys that are 230 pounds at 4.39, sometimes like Leonard Fournette was like a 4.5 something.
Yeah.
But given his size, when you get about 50, 60 yards down the field, he had like 21 miles an hour that year, and he was the fastest guy. And I kind of think those big guys, like, they may not get up to speed as quickly as, maybe Deshaun Jackson, but when they're at their top speed, they're just as fast. And this guy, he's motoring when he's at full speed. So I think they'll get him the ball. I'd like to see them check down a little bit more. We'll see what Frank Reich does, but it just seemed like they left some checkdowns on the table yesterday.
Yeah, but they are designing pass plays to him, though. So that on the
they design
side,
one, but much better, especially because Hines comes in on third downs a lot, is just, take the check down. Like, you're not Lamar Jackson. You're not Kyler Murray. When things break down and people are covered, just dump it to the guy who's got the 4.39 wheels and breaks tackles. Like,
right.
Wentz isn't splitting the atom, I don't think, but it doesn't take that much to just check it down.
Right. That's right. On the Houston side of things, not much to say about them. There's just, Davis Mills looked good in that one game. In the last couple of weeks last 3 weeks actually have been unrelenting pain.
No, I watched that game because I had him in Survivor, and Mills actually looked pretty good in the first half. He's making every throw. But all they can do is dink and dunk. Like, he's just running these outs, and they go on fourth down sometimes. So it's hard to stop a team that's running these like outs and has like Brandon Cooks and quick receivers. And who's that other rookie guy? Nico Collins was making some plays.
Yeah, he came back this week.
They looked all right. But then there are a couple things happened. There was like a turnover. They got behind 17-3, and then it was 24-3 after the Taylor run and the touchdown. And then they had the ball like in the third quarter with 4 minutes left in the third quarter, and they're doing this dink and dunk, run it, dink and dunk. And I'm like, a great job of killing clock up down 21-3.
Right,
they only had one mode. They had, like, their offense. You think, oh, this is kind of a smart offense with a rookie QB and not a great team. But then you realize that's all they had. There was nothing they could do once they were behind. And
but it was weird because last week against the Pats, they were throwing downfield a lot.
They
Chris
didn't
Moore
really.
And Chris Conley were making plays.
It was mostly they converted a bunch of fourth downs, and they just had these long drives. And that's actually good. You keep the other team's defense on the field the whole game. I mean, it was working, and it was happening in the first half, but it was like literally that one of the touchdowns to Chris Moore was like, it was only like a 25-yard pass, but it was like just over the defender and dropped right into the guy, and the defender fell, and there's no one behind him. So it became a long pass. Another one to Chris Conley was like similar. It was just like uncanny how the defenders like just fell away when those things were completed. They just don't have any sort of downfield game, and we'll see when Tyrod Taylor comes back. But they are the worst team in the NFL still.
Yeah, they are. They are. And you're right about that. We'll talk a little Bears-Packers, but first, a note from our friends at Yahoo. The new NFL season is underway, and Yahoo is excited to kick off daily fantasy football. There will be a ton of big prize contests throughout the season on Yahoo, including their multi-entry contest now being shark-free. To celebrate the beginning of football season and Yahoo Daily Fantasy becoming shark-free, Yahoo is giving all users the opportunity to claim free $10 in contest entry credit. Users can take advantage of this free $10 contest entry credit offer to join one of Yahoo's biggest contests. In addition to the free credit, Yahoo has a $1 million DFS football contest live. The $1 million contest features $1 million in total prizes, including first place receiving $100,000, and an entry to the first ever Yahoo Fantasy Football Championship live finals event, which will occur at MGM National Harbor in Maryland this December. Play daily fantasy football on Yahoo this season. Visit sports.yahoo.com/dailyfantasy/welcome to claim the free $10 offer to get started. All right, so Aaron Rodgers taunted the Bears fans, claiming "I own you" after running for a touchdown late in that game. This was actually kind of a competitive game until the late rushing touchdown. But the Bears, to be honest, though, the Bears' offense still looks pretty terrible. Justin Fields really hasn't gotten on track yet.
Yeah, he just doesn't look good. And the Ghetto Chat, of course, fleeced him, getting not only Tony, but a first, a fourth, and a fifth for next year. Imagine that. For that pick, he got all of that. He got a guy who should have gone in 11th, which is Tony, and 3 other picks for next year, even maybe after his tenure is over. What a Chad the Ghetto Chat is. Yeah, the Rodgers thing was funny, and I found this Reddit thing. It was this guy Spreadopedia tweeted this, right. And there's a Bears fan on Reddit, and it's labeled LMAO, laugh my ass off. I still own you. Go Pack go. And the quote is, "It's one thing to see as a fan to see Aaron Rodgers saunter into the end zone to score the game-sealing touchdown with his own 2 hands. It's what he's been doing for literally my entire life as a Bears fan, and sometimes it just be like that. But to hear him stare the crowd down and yell, 'I own you, I still own you,' crushed my soul to a new level. It served as a reminder that Aaron Rodgers isn't just an idea. He's a real human being that comes into our city once a year and F's my shit up. Aaron Rodgers is the boogeyman, and I fully expect him to be there when I die, staring into my eyes, smiling softly. I own you." So he's really he expects to see Aaron Rodgers' face at his death, you know? That's where it's gotten to. So they asked Rodgers at the end of the game, and obviously Rodgers, like, it's pretty, like, talking about taunting is a 15-yard penalty. I mean, what's that? He said, "I don't know, that just, in the height of the moment, something just came over me." He's like, he just dissociated. He's like, some woman was yelling at him, so he just kind of turned that around on him. Yeah, something. Yeah, but yeah, they do own them though, and one of the few bets I got right, it just seemed obvious to me the Packers are going to win that, and the Bears, Justin Fields just hasn't shown really anything. Why would you have any hope if you were the Bears for Justin Fields? It's a good question. Accept it. You maybe just hope over time. It's kind of like the Dolphins and Tua, right? That there's some concern. There's a reason. Maybe there's a reason why some teams passed on him. I don't know. We might also be jumping the gun on this. I don't know. I mean, it might just be that you take your rookie lumps. He was kind of a project in college too. So maybe it just takes more time for him to adjust to the NFL, and he'll get there. You always like the guy with mobility. Now, Jalen Hurts is a good fantasy quarterback. I'm not convinced he's a good NFL quarterback just yet. He did not look good against the Bucks. He looked sloppy again, and they have a good pass rush. But he made some really nice throws on the run against the Bucks. Like, he made some rollouts where he really made some nice throws. But just in the pocket, it's late. His timing's off. He's missing open guys that, he's throwing to the wrong guy. He was a second-round pick, so he was more of a, he was less of a sure thing. But it's possible he ends up being really good or Fields ends up being really good. But I mean, coaching's part of it. Nobody in Chicago ever becomes a great quarterback, pretty much. Like,
right.
It just, the best quarterback they ever had is who? Jay Cutler. I mean, I don't know, who's the best so it's Fields. Yeah, I'm very bearish. Usually a guy shows something, right? Like usually, like Mac Jones, right? He threw that pick 6 in the Dallas game. Next play, he drops a ball in perfectly to Kendrick Bourne for a touchdown. Burns Trayvon Diggs, on the same route, makes him think he's going to jump it again and burns him. I thought that was pretty good. That doesn't mean he's going to be a great quarterback. He seems okay, but he shows something, right? Trey Lance, the mobility just looks fantastic. He's obviously very raw, but he showed something to me. And then I haven't seen much good from Zach Wilson, to be honest. I've seen flashes from Trevor Lawrence as being good, but yeah, I think like usually you see something within a few games. Usually the guy's not just completely overmatched when he ends up being good. I mean, Hurts looked good right away for 3 games last year.
Yeah, he did. Although even then, like the Dallas game last year, got his production, but he also had some soul-killing turnovers there, and you could still see some of that.
That was like his first or second game. He was like, after last year, like Hurts could be the future. Like he showed enough. These guys are showing nothing. They're showing nothing. Like Fields shows no reason to think that he's going to be good.
Right.
Now, again, it's still very early, and he didn't start at the beginning of the year, so maybe he will end up being good. But it's just usually you see like Goff, nothing in his rookie year, nothing, and then he's in that perfect system, and everyone's like, "Wow, Goff went from like a guy who's a total failed prospect to." Maybe this guy should have been the number 1 pick. But in the end,
it's Jeff Fisher's fault. Yes.
It was Jeff, just like it was Adam Gaze's fault with Darnold after 2 games.
Right.
I think, but what we found out with Goff was, and I kind of think like that year that he was just showed absolutely nothing in a terrible system with bad coaching and bad players around him. That was enough to say like, this guy's probably not going to be a great quarterback. And it's very rare that a guy goes through a whole year. As I said, we talked about Burrow, no offensive line last year, still showed something. Herbert showed something. Mahomes showed it right away. The great ones, Deshaun Watson right away. I mean, Cam Newton was good right away. Even Andy Dalton was decent right away. Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco, all these guys were good pretty quickly. And when you show nothing, I think a mixed bag, like where you're good, have some good and bad and make some mistakes, but there's something there. Like Daniel Jones was a mixed bag. He wasn't bad. But
I think he's bad.
Well, he might be bad, but his rookie year, he was actually pretty good. Like he had a good rookie year. And, I'm talking about guys who don't even do what Daniel Jones did as a rookie, and with, so. Yeah,
they look more like Josh Rosen. Yeah. And that's the problem.
Right.
There.
And then Josh Rosen's still not really, he's hanging on barely to a spot in the league. So.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know what's going to happen with Fields, but it's really depressing if you have Allen Robinson.
Don't talk yang about Danny Dimes like that, Jeff. I don't like that.
Danny Dimes was horrible yesterday.
He was bad yesterday.
He was so bad.
Yeah.
But he had help for sure. But Robinson I'm pretty bummed out about because it just crushes him. He got like 3 late catches. Hey, he got over 50 yards. Yay. Really? We're getting excited about 50 yards now? I mean, come on. That's not what we paid for.
I heard all the hype about this rookie class. And I thought, okay, yeah, Robinson's going to get an upgrade. He's going to get Dalton, who's not that bad, better than Trubisky and Foles. And then if Fields takes over, well, he's one of the hyped, it could have been number 3 pick. People are talking about him. Number 2, number 3. This is a hyped rookie class. This guy's going to be good. And I really thought a healthy Allen Robinson could not fail because I thought it's going to be at least as good as last year where he caught 95 passes or whatever. And it'll probably be better. Good chance it's better. And he's just a really good player in the late prime. He's going to be a monster. And I just could not foresee the passing game being this inept.
Right. Exactly. It's hard to fathom how bad it is. And we haven't even gotten cold weather yet. That's the thing that's crazy. Can't even blame it on the weather.
It's interesting. Like, Trubisky was a bust, right? And then Foles came in, and Foles had been, I guess he was pretty terrible in Jacksonville though the year before, but Foles had been good, in certain stops. And I wonder how much Chicago is just an impossible place to play quarterback at, where like almost nobody is really good. I mean, even Aaron Rodgers beats them all the time, but it's not like he lit it up. It's just,
Yeah. He has lit it up there though before, but that is the difference. But from what I'm hearing, by the way, they're going to be moving stadiums someday. They bought all this land out in Arlington Heights. Soldier Field apparently is the smallest stadium, smallest capacity in the league. And they spent all this money on upgrades on the stadium, but it's still smaller than everything else. So I wouldn't be surprised that happens. I wonder, moving it away from the lake, maybe that changes the weather issues. Maybe they play differently. I don't know.
Green Bay's had Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, even Don Mikowski, Lynn Dickey, Bart Starr.
I know.
It's a quarterback team, and the Bears don't have quarterbacks, and it's like it's colder in Green Bay than Chicago, so it's not just the temperature. So maybe
I'm thinking wind patterns. Though.
Yeah,
maybe
I know
the way it's pointed.
No, I know. There's something about Chicago, I think, that makes it really hard to play quarterback there.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just organizational malaise. They've had the same owner forever, or same family of owners. George Halas's offspring were running the team. There's got to be some explanation. I just don't know what it is. Quick other note here real quick. Thrive is back for another season of fantasy football, and they're running huge guaranteed contests each week this NFL season. With Thrive Fantasy, you can eliminate the countless hours of research and focus only on the top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Sign up today and get a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Here's how you claim your free RotoWire subscription. 1, visit rotowire.com/thrive. 2, deposit a minimum of $10 and receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. 3, play in your first paid contest and receive a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Thanks to Thrive and thanks to our Blue Wire sponsors on the Blue Wire Network. Jeff and Chris here. Let's talk a little about Cowboys and the Patriots. This was a close game, but the Cowboys, I mean, they left so much on the field. There's the 2 red zone turnovers, especially the goal line, 4th and goal, the
fumble over.
Yeah. I mean, that was, they originally ruled a touchdown, and then Dak threw the pick also in the red zone. It was funny listening to, this is on the drive home. I'm listening to the Patriots broadcast of it. They were slaughtering Mike McCarthy. They're like, man, Mike, this is why people are killing you. Is there would be like there's the false start right before the end of the third quarter. Didn't even have to run a play. They could have just gone to the end of the quarter, right? Instead, they had yet another penalty. That was like their 12th penalty of the game. There was some decision in the first half where they went for it and didn't make it, where they screwed up before that too. There's just a lot of screw ups.
Well, no, he also tried a field goal on like 4th and 1.
For 51 yards. Yeah.
For 51 yards with like 3 minutes left. The Patriots only had 1 timeout left. So it was like, it wasn't just, well, if you make this, you get a lead. It was that if you make the first down, you might be able to get 2 more first downs and just kick a 20-yarder to win the game. And that's the end.
Right.
But instead they missed the field goal. Then I think the next play or 2 plays later was the pick 6. So he got bailed out, but then the Kendrick Bourne touchdown. It was a very weird sequence of events, but it was just terrible. Like, what are you doing, dude? Even if you make the field goal, you're not necessarily you're not improving your winning percentage here. Even if you make it and then they missed it. But if you get a first down, you're vastly improving your winning percentage because now you can move the ball up further and you can really run the rest of the clock out. And then, it wasn't a big deal, but he left like 20 seconds on the clock with the game tying field goal in case the Patriots had any play to make on the last thing. He's just sloppy and he's not a good coach. His decisions are it's almost like he's not really aware. It's kind of like, when I host these podcasts, I always forget to do the advertising read at 20 minutes. And then I always, at first I didn't know how to navigate some of the stuff like during the podcast. And I'm just not very good at being a host yet. I'm just not aware of all the things that you have to manage for being the host of these things with the different buttons you have to push and stuff.
Because you're a real man. Yeah.
I'm a real man. I don't bother with that kind of I don't bother with nonsense, but so is he. He's like, I don't bother with clock management. I'm too busy focusing on the play I want to call it. What's Kellen Clem's who is it? What's the name of the play caller? Kellen Moore calling the plays. And so I don't know what he's focused on, but it's almost as if he's just not aware of the situations that, in which he's making these decisions. And he never has been really aware of that. It's one thing to say, okay, I mean, to be like, well, I'm going to do this against, I'm going to stay on 16 against the 10 because I've got a card count in my head and this is the right thing to do. There's a ton of 10s left or whatever, the reason is in blackjack, and go unconventional. It's another thing to just stay on 16 against the 10 because you don't know the book. You just don't know you don't know what the base rate even is. It kind of feels like he's like that. Maybe he knows, but it feels as though he's just not even aware of it. You can diverge from the base rate if you know what the hell's going on and there's a special circumstance that you're aware of or you have a real instinct about it. But it almost seems like he's just coaching blind, with these decisions he's making.
Yeah, it's every week there's something like that. Against the Eagles, it's not calling the timeout to try to get to try to get one more possession, and then the next week it's calling a timeout to give the other team more time. It's just like it just does it backwards sometimes.
And he did it on the Packers, and he basically had the Seahawks dead to rights in the NFC title game, and he gave that game away. I can't even remember the details, but I remember thinking, oh my God, I think I bet on the Packers too, so it cost me money. So I hate this guy. Maybe he's a leader of men. Maybe they buy in. I mean, the team's certainly playing well, so he probably does something well. But, Rodgers started to sort of rot on the vine, under his last 4 or 5 years there with him. And then 2 years into LaFleur's tenure, it's like Rodgers is peak Rodgers again. So, yeah, I think that's the limiting factor for the Cowboys. I think their defense and offense are going to get DeMarcus Lawrence back eventually. Is a Super Bowl level team. It's a really good team.
Yeah, Randy Gregory was playing pretty well yesterday. He had sack fumble.
But he also just absolutely pancaked Mac Jones. He came in, and it reminded me of Leonard Marshall taking out Joe Montana or Jim Burt destroying Montana. The Giants used to destroy Joe Montana when they would beat him. They would just beat him, and you can't do that anymore to quarterbacks. You can't touch him. But that was an old school 1980s body slam. It was Stephen Gregory just took Randy. What's his name? Randy Gregory just took Mac Jones and just absolutely put full weight on him. I'm surprised they didn't call it.
Yeah, and I am too, especially when you saw other calls that were way lighter that they did call in other games. Not necessarily that game, but there were just a lot of penalties in that game. I mean, the Pats had a touchdown turned over because on the play, the play before the sack fumble. They scored actually, and then that got turned over. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. The sequence with Bourne, the pick six where Bourne, it wasn't a great throw, but Bourne actually didn't make a great effort trying to get it. It was a tip, and went right into Diggs' hands. And then on the score, Diggs seems to peel off. The safeties come in, he kind of veers off. Look like they're trying to avoid each other, and maybe not try to they hit on the defenseless receiver thing or something like that. At any rate, it was just a weird back-to-back set of plays there right after the bad decision to kick.
Yeah, it was. I thought it reflected well on Mac Jones. Like he did there was a bad throw to Bourne, and he just overthrew him, and it was got a pick six. And then the very next play comes back and drops it in just right, and that took some poise. I think it seems like mentally. I think Mac Jones mentally is pretty good, and he's accurate usually. I just don't know if there's anything extra. He's definitely going to be Teddy Bridgewater, it seems, or something. Like he'll be able to be that guy. But is there a ceiling for him? Is there a Chad Pennington? Is there Drew Brees is the ceiling of ceilings for a guy like that? But is there a high ceiling for him? I don't know. But he's definitely above the floor.
Yeah, that's right. So anyways, a couple of things we'll be watching. Dak got hurt on that last play, hurt his calf. So we'll watch to see that. But they're on bye this week, so you're going to have a little extra time anyhow. So probably it'll be okay. They play Minnesota in week 8. Minnesota, I think, also on bye, so they'll be playing each other. The Browns play on Thursday, and they have all these injuries. Chubb obviously sat out. Kareem Hunt left with a calf injury. He actually got carted to the locker room. I don't know if you're going to really go crazy over Demetric Felton, Jarnis Johnson, but Johnson's probably going to be the guy in the backfield. I think Felton's more of a pass catcher. We'll see how that plays out. Those are the big ones that we'll be watching about. But it's just there's going to be some other injuries that kind of emerge over the course of the week too. Tyreek Hill was in and out of that game on Sunday against the football team, so it's another guy I want to watch news for.
Kelsey was banged up for a bit with his wrist or something. Seems like he went back in. Kadarius Toney's got the ankle. That's the real superstar of this league now, Jeff. So you're still in yesterday's world with Tyreek Hill. This is Kadarius Toney's world now.
I'm analog still. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. You're playing checkers.
Yeah. Okay. So noted. Thanks for the gratuitous insult on the way out there. I appreciate it.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's how I roll.
Anything looking forward to on East Coast offense for tomorrow?
I think I'm going to write about probability. I sort of touched on this, but how there's the arbitrary endpoint idea where I could say you got lucky. The Cowboys got lucky to to cover against the Pats, right? They got lucky. The Pats went to overtime. They were getting 3.5. The Pats got the ball first. But you could say, well, look, Dallas had 400. They had so many yards. I mean, they outplayed them. You were lucky to even go to overtime with those turnovers and whatever else. And then someone will say, well, I mean, just lucky the game even went that way. I mean, before the game, the implied odds was exactly, this, and the money went toward the Pats. It was at 4, and it went down to 3, almost 3.5, 3. And so this whole idea of luck, it's really just like an argument over these kind of arbitrary endpoints. Like, where does the luck start? And it's like saying, oh, you got lucky. You survived and survived right in. Why? My team was 80%. Your team was 80% per Vegas. Just because mine ended up being a close game was just unlucky that the game played that particular version of itself. Why? It could have gone a blowout way, as many do. It could have gone the other way. I mean, and just the idea of like, I don't know, just kind of get to the point of like, what are we really saying when we say this is lucky or this is unlucky, and whether that even means anything, or we're just basically setting up arbitrary endpoints and using it to win an argument against somebody or to prove that we were right, essentially.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, look forward to it. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks to WynnBET for your sponsorship. We will be back at you again next Monday, but coming up tomorrow, we got Joe and Jake, and we're off to go do our XM show. So thanks for listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Have a great day.